Today, ScorchShirtToys@anymoon.com is asking the question, did Bandai make any fixes to the 31AX Kairos Plus toys after the original release? You can see my original review by clicking the card now. If you're curious about the difference between the Delta TV show version and the movie versions, I lay it all out in that video, so check it out. My big complaint was there was something floppy, sloppy, weird about the way the arms fit in fighter mode. Bandai followed it up with a Mirage custom, a Bogue custom, and a Hayate reissue. If you're in the market for the Hayate reissue or just about any other toy, click that link in the comments below to head to Big Bad Toy Store and show this channel some love in the process. Other than the exclusion of the launch version bonus display stand, all these toys come with the same stuff. You get the toy, of course, a pilot figure, 2 knives that can pivot and be stowed, 6 pairs of fixed posed hands, a display stand consisting of a base and an arm, clear display stand adapters for each mode, a gun, and full color instructions unique to each release. Do you like unsatisfactory answers? Great, because you're about to get one. And the question is, did Bandai address all of the little build quality issues that we found with our first Kairos Plus toy in the later issues? Those build quality, I don't know, they're kind of fit and finish issues. And really, it's all around the new arms. Because on the Siegfried toys, everything fits so tight and crisp. It is amazing. And then we got the Kairos Plus, and there's things like if you push in the back here to make it all flush with the contours, the gun points downward. That's weird. You come to the back here, there's a gap between the wing and the ankle, and that's weird. And then you don't really have a good place to put your hand because you move these guns around, and that's weird. And every time you touch it, you move a canard or something. And so it's just little things where you're like, you know, the Siegfried toy was better. And I expect later toys to improve, not take a step backwards, but that's what we had. So then we get to the Mirage toy. And the question is, did Bandai address those things? And on my Mirage toy, look how flush that is. That's beautiful back there. And the gun is not pointing downward. The ankle here, still a gap between the ankle and the body here, but nothing terrible. But overall handling experience very similar, except my guns are nice and level, and the contours in the back, this one has a little bit. There's still something that just, it's so hard to get everything to come together perfectly, and it's just not doing it. So I would say better than my first toy. Still room for improvement. So then comes Bogue, and you're like, all right, third time is the charm. What the hell is going on with that gun? That gun is clearly pointing downward, and it's not even tight on the back. So we do this, it's just awful. And now, you can affect this in transformation, so you might be thinking, oh, idiot, you just didn't transform it right. Not true. I have transformed this thing several times trying to address that gun pointing downward. It just can't be fixed. So I think there must be, if there's a little bit of flash somewhere, you get these downward pointing guns, and it was still a problem during the Bogue release. And then going back to the ankles here, that's pretty tight. I would not complain at all about how tight those pegs are back there. Everything's fitting fine. Another thing, still not addressed at this point, the gun has a little tab on the top of it and a peg. Never seems to work, but good enough. So now we are finally at the reissue. You can see I put a little tape and an R on there so I wouldn't screw things up here. And as I pull up to the side, the guns are flat. Still doesn't really peg in perfectly though. So if you're hoping you're gonna get a Siegfried level experience, still not happening. Although I will say as we get to the back here, These pegs now are fitting basically flush with the ankle, so that seems to be an improvement. But otherwise, it was never terrible, and it never got perfect. And it's really hard for me to say like, yep, all the problems are solved, because I think you're still gonna find yourself thinking, you know, the Siegfried just did it all better. As a kid from the 80s, the paint jobs on these toys continues to blow me away, along with all the little translucent plastic bits and everything else. Just all of the markings, all of the writing on the toy, very, very nicely done. And I could have never even imagined back when I was a kid that we would someday get these sorts of insignias on our toys that really have such intricate work and are in an area that has movement, and it still comes together so well. So obviously very high marks for the presentation. You do get an opening cockpit, you do have a separate pilot figure, there is nice EX gear detail in that cockpit. When the pilot figure is in there, he's looking like he's riding really low, which is a new issue that was not on the Siegfried toy, so that's a little weird. One of my complaints about the Siegfried toys was the knees that become rear landing gear, and that was one of those things I hoped might be addressed by a Kairos Plus toy, and instead it's still right there. Legs are basically the same, so still a letdown. Front landing gear, tow bar, metal landing gear, so some nice things to it. I guess it rolls on those. Those back landing gear are so chintzy that it kind of doesn't, but that's fine. You can see I've got the guns out in fighter mode, still an option, and they can pivot, which is another fun factor thing. One of the other issues I don't like about this toy, and this one's kind of true of the Siegfried toy too, if you try to lift it by the front, it doesn't really have any rigidity, and it's worse on the Kairos Plus toy because the natural areas you would want to grab this toy have really big canards or guns or sharp points in front of them. So it becomes a little awkward to handle. You do still get those missile bays in the back, which sometimes are hologram projectors. They can either pivot upward or slide forward to reveal the missiles, which is another cool gimmick to still have on there. If you're like me and you can't stand those landing gear, well, good news, the toy still comes with a very basic display stand. The arm of this display stand was introduced with the armored parts for the Siegfried toys. It's a little reinforced version of the arm that was with the Siegfrieds. The display stand, very basic, nice clear adapter. It's 2 parts, but it holds the toy very firmly, so you're not gonna have any questions if someone knocks your display case. Is your toy gonna tumble? It'll stay there, but it just really elevates the toy and eliminates the need for the landing gear. It doesn't give you any options beyond that. All right, now you know fighter, let's move on to Gearwalk. The fit and finish issues were limited to how the arms tuck in fighter mode. So by the time you got to Gearwalk mode on the first release or any of these subsequent releases, everything is gravy, and this toy does Gearwalk mode extremely well. It's a lot easier to handle in this mode. It stays together very well in this mode. There are some articulation points that really help it out. And one of those, like the Siegfried toy, is the fact that we can twist away from the body at the Gearwalk joints up here, which is great. It lets you get a really wide stance. And then we have this extension at the leg, which comes out, and it's nice clicky extension, gets you far out, and then gets you a lot more room to swing forward. Look how far forward we can go. That is incredible. But none of it would mean much without your really incredible ankles. So the ankles, and they've got this little piece on a ball joint in the back, have the ability to, I mean, look at that leg, the toe is pointing straight down from the leg right now. And I'm not gonna talk so you can hear it. There are click points within there that get you forward to what would be a Batroid position, and we can adjust that. And then from the side, what you could see is that you've also got the ability to rock the foot, so you can get it very far extended forward. Let's get that out of the way. And then you can rock it in so it looks level on the ground. So that is incredible. Makes for really nice, stable posing and very aggressive poses. And then of course you could twist the guns, you can pivot them up and down up on top. So that's all fun too. So gear walk mode was great on the original release, continues to be great on these later issues. One of the complaints I had about the original Siegfried toys is that on the articulated hands here, you get this finger that is not articulated. These fingers down here all nicely form into a fist position. This finger is always just poking out. So what you'd have to do if you don't like that is you can go ahead and grab one of those fixed post hands, ball joint, very easy to replace it. The other thing I wanted to show you here is that you could take the gun off the top, and then I'm gonna use a fixed post hand here. We'll put that gun on the fixed post hand. It angles out awkwardly, but that's okay. Now, one of the problems we have here is that while this toy has a lot of great ratcheted joints, the elbow is not one of them. So you're gonna have to be creative in how you prop up the gun when you've put it in the toy's hand. And obviously that will also be a problem in Batroid mode. So a bit of a bummer on how big and heavy that gun is versus how strong that elbow joint is. Here we are in Batroid mode, and the big difference for Bogue and Mirage is the head sculpt. Now, Bogue gets a head sculpt that is very similar to a VF-31A Kairos, despite the fact that he's flying a retrofitted VF-31S. Mirage has a head sculpt that is very similar to her Siegfried. The fin on top, I think it looks cool, although I don't really understand it. Maybe it's just an antenna or something along those lines. Now, the toy itself is very similar to a Siegfried toy, and again, I have that comparison that I do encourage you to check out. Remember, we're just talking about bigger arms here. So that means this thing is gonna function just as well as the Siegfried toy, which is great because the Siegfried toy is amazing. It's got the waist twist here. We have these arms that go up and down and all the way around, and you can come out from the shoulder. You have a twist point right there in the bicep. I showed you the elbow's still fantastic. So everything is really, really good up on top, and it continues to be good because we had those extending joints at the hips for a really wide stance, the twist underneath, and then we have the knee, which we can extend. We have the gear walk joint we could bring into play. The knee, you can get more than 90 degrees when it's extended. We can come forward. I don't know why you wouldn't Batroid mode. And then I showed you how great those ankles were too. So you can just have a ton of fun with these toys, angle these around, pull the gun out, put it in the hand. You will not lack for things to do that will be very enjoyable and make cool displays. And what giant mecha covered in guns wouldn't be complete without a small dagger? And you get one with these toys, and you can stow it underneath the forearm in all modes, and then just have it posed like it's pulling it out like that, or like it's shivving somebody in the bathroom of the prison. So that's fun. So honestly, I love these toys in Batroid mode. I have a ton of fun playing with them as long as we don't throw accessories on them. These ratcheted hip joints are so strong. When you have the toy on the display stand, you can even bring the leg looking parallel to the ground. That's very impressive stuff. As you saw, I just bumped that toy. Very sturdy balance. Things are very good here. But the question we asked at the beginning of this is, did the Hayate reissue or Bogue or Mirage fix any of the problems with the very first release, which was really fit and finish related to fighter mode? And the answer is incrementally yes. It seems like things have gotten a little better, but you're always at risk of something not fitting together perfectly and throwing everything off like I had with my Bogue toy in fighter mode. Hayate's reissue would be the one that I recommend you purchase, but it's not guaranteed that it's going to come together perfectly in fighter mode. In fact, if perfect is the bar you've set, it's not going to satisfy that, but it could come together good enough where you can enjoy it. And certainly there's only a few positions where you'd even notice that things don't come together perfectly. So that's something to consider. Overall, I still really enjoy these toys and I do recommend them. I just think the Siegfried toys were a little bit better. If you enjoyed this review, please give me a thumbs up. If you got anything to say, I respond to comments, and subscribe to stay tuned to the next video. Thanks everyone for watching.